John, a Thanksgiving treat. We have an interview with the head of Amazon Global Sports, Jay Marine.
And Andrew, I want to take my Thanksgiving hat off to you. Apparently, you're relentless.
I give the reporter credit. 4 calls yesterday from reporters trying to get a quote from me. I did not respond because I don't play that game.
And we're back. The Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. And John, Thanksgiving, we know people have their turkey, they got their mashed potatoes, their stuffing. So we're going to give them a big exclusive interview with Jay Marine. And we're going to cut it with just who's up, who's down. And first of all, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving.
And same to you. I love doing the pod and love getting Jay Marine on this. He doesn't talk a lot. So to get him on the record on a lot of different topics, I think the listeners are going to really enjoy this one.
All right, let's do it. Who's up? Who's down?
Who's up?
Who's down?
Andrew, get us started.
All right, John, my who's up? Tom Brady.
Wait, what's that? We have breaking news on the Brady meter? Bring it in, Chris Mason.
A Thanksgiving treat. The Brady meter has moved substantially up to 67% that Tom Brady.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Andrew?
Sure.
In our production meeting before this pod, it was at 64. It's continuously rising. This is incredible.
The meter is always working, and that 64 went to 67% just in my head as I was talking. The reason TMZ has pictures of Aaron Andrews, Tom Brady, and the executive producer of Fox Sports, Brad Zager on TMZ Sports. Look, and I'm hearing some rumblings in terms of Brady's interest. So the meter is going up that Brady will do it. Listen, just to be clear, we've always kind of been more positive than negative about Brady doing it. We had one time where we put Brady more on the negative side, 49% to 51%. That got a lot of attention when we said that here on the podcast. But it was just an opinion at the time. It really gets blown out of proportion, as a lot of the aggregation tends to. But Brady meter is up. I think as of right now, it looks like he's doing. If you're going to put money on this, I don't know. I'm sure you get emails all the time from people tell you about some crazy bet that their entity is, they want you to publicize that. I always ignore, but I'm sure you can maybe bet on the Brady meter someplace. But right now, I put my money on him doing it. 10 years, $375 million. Will he be good? I like to wait till people broadcast. My personal feeling, though, is just that I tend to think he will be good. Now, could be wrong, but we'll see. Greg Olson's done a tremendous job. He's going to have suitors. He would move to the number 2 spot. But he's still in a great position, in my opinion. But right now, the Tom Brady meter at 67% here on Thanksgiving, about 10 months away from opening day of the football season next year, 2024.
I have just one question of clarification. Kevin Burkhardt, if there's a Burkhardt meter, it's at 100%. He will remain the top play-by-play analyst, right? He will remain the top play-by-play guy for Fox.
More breaking news. No, yes. Yeah, there's no question. Burkhardt is doing. Why wouldn't he not? Burkhardt established himself last year, succeeding Joe Buck, and has done a very good job, very likable. And I think that's an advantage for Brady because Burkhardt really does try to make his partners better. That's helped Olson, a very likable guy. And so, I fully expect Burkhardt to be the play-by-player.
All right. Well, Andrew, let's just get right to Jay Marine, because how can I follow Brady meter?
So you're bringing the jokes on Thanksgiving. John is
thank you very much.
He had a lot of dessert. He's feeling.
Hey, I am a dad. What do you want?
There you go.
Who's up? Chris Winfrey. He is the CEO of Charter Communications, and he is the one who developed the strategy, and more importantly, actually stuck with the strategy during the cable company's recent dispute with Disney. I grew up covering the cable business. And these types of disputes, they happened all the time. They always turn nasty in public over the years. But there was always a bit of collegiality. Like the deals always got done. And at the end of the day, these were always cable guys, and they wanted to do deals that kept the cable business going. But Winfrey is different. He's a numbers guy. He's a former CEO. I, for one, totally believed that he was going to move forward without Disney, or at least he was prepared to, unless he got certain concessions. And the reason why he's my who's up this week is because we're seeing the effects of his deal making even today. We had DirecTV's Rob Thune on a couple of weeks ago, and he described that charter deal as precedent setting. What that means, if you want to read between the lines, is when Paramount's deal comes up with DirecTV, Fox, NBC, and of course Disney, they're going to extract the same concessions that Charter was able to do. The other reason that Chris Winfrey is my who's up is because Disney announced that they're going to do a direct-to-consumer app by 2025. That deal gave them cover to do that, to make that announcement, in my opinion. I don't know the details of the DTC launch yet. None of us really do. But it seems virtually certain that ESPN's direct-to-consumer app will be available to every single authenticated Charter customer. And I would suspect every DirecTV customer and every Comcast customer, all down the line. It all spawns from the hardline stance that Winfrey took. And so he's a good Thanksgiving week who's up.
I actually think that might be good for ESPN, quite honestly, because they think the longer the bundle survives, the better it is for ESPN. Yes, they want to go DTC, and maybe that's where the future will be, but they'll be there as well. So I think Charter's stance might have helped ESPN long term.
It certainly helps the cable bundle long term, which helps ESPN long term. I totally agree.
All right, my who's down is Netflix. I don't know, John, did you watch the Netflix Cup?
You know what? I saw one clip that you sent to me, which is there a stronger word than atrocious? I don't know.
Well, look, they're my who's down, so I'm not being positive on it. But yeah, the Netflix Cup, I was not impressed. Netflix, this was supposed to be, at least some people, we didn't really present it their first, edition of live sports. With this golf event with F1 drivers and some PGA players, and so it wasn't really a serious event. But if I'm the league, so I'm the NBA looking at Netflix, and I'm saying, do I trust them with producing these things? Now, the NBA very well might produce for Netflix. I mean, that's, you saw with Amazon, NBC has a big impact in terms of how they produce Thursday Night Football. The NBA has built this infrastructure, so they very well could do that. But I would say that Netflix has all the money in the world. They have a great amount of subscribers, so that makes a lot of sense. But just watching that production, again, not a serious event, and you have to give them time. It was the first one. But if I'm the league, if I'm the NBA, you got to pay me much more to go with Netflix at this point than if I went with someone else. And maybe they will. I tend to be a little bit not believing in Netflix yet, because I just haven't seen them invest big in sports. And when I've heard them associated with some leagues and some negotiations, which I've reported upon in the past, it's been smaller deals here and there. So there really hasn't been evidence yet that they're going to go big into sports, even though I know your big point about they've added an ad tier, which perhaps makes them want to do that, and makes a little bit more sense now that they're going to have, and they do have advertising, but wasn't a great debut if I'm the leagues looking at Netflix.
Andrew, that specifically, the clip that you sent me was a shot. It was a golf shot, and they focused on a sand trap, and the ball fell about 20 yards in front of the sand trap in the fairway. And instead of going to the ball, then they went to a ridiculous tight shot of these golfers, none of whom were identified, none of whom you knew. It was pretty poor. But Netflix does have a couple of things going for it. One is it has gobs of money, as you said. And the second one is it has an ad tier that it's trying to sell more subscriptions to. And the one thing that all streamers have learned about these ad-supported tiers is that live sports is what really drives subscriber growth, and then you can sell advertising around it. And so it was not a good start for what wasn't really a live sport, but I don't think they're going anywhere. I think that once they decide to get into sports, they're going to do it they're going to do it in a big way.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Who's down for me, Andrew? I see your Brady meter, and I match you. Who's down? Chris Ripley, Sinclair. Yes.
Do we have a number on Chris Ripley for who's down? Poor guy.
Can we just rename this already? Look, last week, there was a Sinclair lawyer. His name is David Seligman, and he told a bankruptcy court that Diamond Sports, the group that runs all the Bally Sports RSNs, is going to shut down after the 2024 MLB season. The problem, Andrew, with Seligman's statement is that, well, look, there's a distinct possibility that Diamond is unwinding and it's going to go belly up in a year. It's not necessarily 100% true. And the idea that Sinclair threw this bomb in the middle of a public court hearing hurts Diamond's leverage completely. Look, again, Diamond is not a healthy business right now. But it has done a deal with the NBA that will allow its local rights to revert back to the league at the end of this season. It's about to do the same deal with NHL. MLB is sort of considering doing something like that. So it certainly feels like an unwinding. Let's look at some of the possibilities where it's not an unwinding. Could some of the Bally Sports nets move forward and others don't? Maybe it goes from 19 RSNs to 10 or 12. My point is that like Diamond has a path to staying afloat. It's not a clear path or a likely path, but it's not at all how Sinclair described it to a judge last week, and it just made a lot of people sort of scratch their heads and say, what was the reason that they came out so forcefully during that hearing?
So, John, my takeaway is that it sounds like Diamond's going to unwind. Over the next year.
However unlikely, there are pathways forward, and have like their former company, their former owner, sort of put a stake in them this early. It surprised me. I'll put it that way. So, Andrew, instead of getting to the topics, let's just get right to Jay Marine, the head of Amazon Sports, our big get this week.
John, the big get, Jay Marine, head of Amazon Global Sports. Jay, I did a story before Amazon Prime Video started on Thursday nights, and I talked about your high school career. I made Jay, I don't know if this is accurate, it was a combination of John Stockton as a basketball player and Deion Sanders as a cornerback. So we got off to a good start with that. But Jay, I guess where we really wanted to start off with, you've been at Amazon a long time. You were Jeff Bezos's right-hand man for a while, which is a very top job there, of course. But when you came into sports, even though you do have a sports background, a lot of people in the industry were, who's Jay Marine? So, we don't need the life story, but just for people who don't know as much about Jay Marine as perhaps John and I do, who is Jay Marine and how did you get to this spot? And, how do you look at sports and TV?
Sure. Thanks for that. I will say my claim to fame in my high school career is I played a basketball playoff game against Chris Webber and a football game that year against Tyrone Wheatley. Now, neither one of those worked out very well for me, but we did play the games. I'm a passionate player of sports and watcher of sports my whole life. I've been at Amazon about 21 years, and it's been a long, it's amazing what Amazon, how large we are now. And I love that. But what I really love is the early days when it was like messy, scrappy. And that's kind of how my sports team is. We're kind of like a startup within Amazon, and that's how we think about it. And we want to move fast and innovate. And that's really, I think we're at our best as a company when we act like a startup and really take that approach. And that's what I love. I love to do new things and build things. So just quickly, without a long story, I started at Amazon as a product manager. My second thing I've ever did at Amazon was launching our sporting goods store, selling basketballs and footballs. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. It's like, it's never going to get better than that. And fast forward, the biggest thing after that was really helping to launch our Kindle business, our hardware device. great learning experience. We had never done hardware. It took us 3 years to launch. We only thought it was going to take a year. My wife launched 2 kids during that time. So she was much more productive, and then got to work for Jeff for a couple of years as his technical advisor, just kind of a shadow role. And I tell you a million stories about that. But that was a great learning experience. And then really when you're in that role, you get to see everything going on at the company. And this is 2013 to 2015. And we had a lot going on, but we had a few major bets. We have more now, but at the time it was really about really fast one day and less shipping. It was about Prime Video, and it was about AWS, and then devices, 3 or 4. And so when you see everything going at the company, for my next role, I knew I wanted to be in one of those major areas. I'd already worked in devices, and an opportunity came up to run Prime Video International in London, which anyone who's ever done a thing like that, first thing you have to do is check with your spouse, see if they actually would ever want to move there. Fortunately, my wife was like, yeah. And I said, really? Because we had never talked about it. And my kids at the time, I have 3 girls, were 5, 8, and 10. Perfect ages before they were sort of too attached into high school. And we went over for 2 years to London and ended up staying for 5, loved it, traveled all over Europe. And I highly recommend that experience to any, both professionally and personally. That was just a magical experience for me living over there. And that's where I got into sports. So we were running Prime Video in Europe, and that's where we first entered sports, specifically with US Open tennis rights in the UK. And then the first major investment was really with the Premier League games in the UK. And then we followed that on with Champions League in Italy and Germany, and now in the UK. And so when I came back to the States for family reasons and COVID and all of those things, we just saw an opportunity to do more in sports. And that was the same time Thursday night football rights were coming around, and I was starting to work on that behind the scenes. And fortunately that deal worked out with the NFL. And from there, I've just taken a dedicated focus to sports, running sports globally, including we've built up a dedicated product and tech team, which, I know you guys will probably talk about this. Streaming live sports, especially at scale, is very hard. We've been at it for a long time now. We've learned a lot, and I'm super proud of that whole organization and the people that work for me on that.
Yeah, this Friday, the Black Friday game is going to be, monumental for the NFL and for you guys, and we're going to get to that in a moment or two. But my other question to start off with is that you told us how you got to sports. When you look at sports, why does it work for Amazon? What is what is important about sports, Thursday night football, et cetera, that works for Amazon and what you guys are trying to do?
Well, first of all, everything with us starts with the customer and starts with Prime. Like, we sit around and say, how do we make Prime better? How do we make Prime more valuable? We want it to be the best membership program in the world. And what I mean by best is we want it to be the most valuable. We want to give more than we're charging. And sports are uniquely valuable. They are must watch. They're non-substitutable. If you love the Premier League, you can't watch rugby instead. I love rugby, but it's not. If you love the NFL, you're going to watch the NFL, and that is uniquely valuable, and at large scale, large audiences and large fan bases. So now they've been uniquely expensive for that reason, because everybody knows that. So the trick is, and everyone has different business models. So for us, it's about what sports are going to add value to Prime and really move the needle for us and be valuable for that Prime member base. And that's sort of the starting point. And then it gets to, the economics have to work for us and the other party and the leagues, of course. And we don't have to have everything. So I think you've seen that in our approach. We don't have to fill hours or a linear schedule. And so we can really be selective, and we don't need everything, even in a given property. This is true in Europe, by the way. Champions League, we have one big match of the week. But the things we want it to be meaningful and big enough. And so that's why you see us looking at the largest tier 1 properties out there.
When you say more valuable to subscribers, what do you mean by that? Is this about growing Prime? Is it about creating stickiness to keep subscribers from churning out of Prime? Obviously, a little bit of both, but how do you view that?
Yeah, it's both for sure, right? I mean, we have a whole Prime Video program with original programming, movies, and TV. Same thing. It's about both bringing new members into Prime, right? So maybe there's a show you want to watch, or you're a big NFL fan and you haven't tried Prime yet. You come in for Thursday Night Football, and then you learn about everything else of Prime, and you try everything else. So it's both bringing people in, but it's also, hey, maybe that's the reason you're going to stay. Because, hey, I watch my Premier League games, I watch Thursday Night Football, it just becomes part of your life then. And so it's absolutely both. It gives more value to customers. That turns into retention, John, but also then there's acquisition in terms of new subscribers. And we see it working both ways. Like we see it's working is the most important thing.
What types of sports work? Obviously, like the Premier League in England is one of the most popular. It's the most popular league over there. The NFL, the most popular league in the United States. Like, how far down? Like, if you're a pickleball league, is that something that you would kick the tires on, or at least take a look at?
We're still experimenting. I would say, the biggest tier one are obviously going to be the biggest needle movers, but they're also the most expensive, of course. And so when we look at other sports, I would say we look at ones that are emerging, that have growth potential, that we believe in. So women's sports is an area like this. We have some WNBA games, and I think they're doing just a fantastic job. We just did a rights deal with NWSL. And Jessica over there, a Michigan grad, by the way. But I see so much growth there, and I think these women's sports just need continued investment. But the athletes are incredible. The quality of play is incredible. So that's an area that we're investing in as well. But the dollars are a lot smaller, of course. But overall, I would say we're not in the business of quantity. We're more in the business of big quality, and it's usually worth paying for to do that.
Now you have Black Friday coming up. Thursday Night Football, this is your second year. The ratings have been way up. I'm going to ask you, why is Thursday, because I know obviously you're going to tell us it's working great, but so I'm going to ask you that. Why is it working for you? Why is it working?
Well, I have a few thoughts on that. First of all, even when we talked a year ago, we view Thursday Night Football as a long-term investment. And this is really how Amazon views all of this. So year one, year two, our goal is to build a Thursday Night Football franchise that is valuable and lasting over the next decade plus for us at Amazon. Now, to do that, the most important thing you'd have to do is you have to start with putting a great product on air. And I think we did that last year. I think we got off to a great start, really happy with what we put on air, both from pre-game, post, live game, talent, as well to the streaming quality and the quality of the video quality we're delivering. So across the board, I'm very happy with what we delivered. And so year one really built the foundation, and year two is about building on that. And we're seeing the results of that now, I think, in this audience growth. We're seeing more people discover Thursday Night Football on Prime Video. And importantly, they're liking what they're seeing and they're coming back week after week. That's how you get an audience growth like that. And then some of it's muscle memory, right? It's like Thursday Night Football's moved around a while. Now we're in year two. People are like in their head establishing Thursday Night Football and Prime Video together more naturally. And that's only going to continue to grow. And the exciting thing for us is we need to continue to execute, number one, and we're so focused on that. We'll never be done improving the product. And nor should we be. And all the other broadcasters do an incredible job. The bar is very high. But the exciting thing is the macro trends are in our favor here. What I can tell you is, and I think I said this in the past, more people are going to be streaming next year than this year. Everything, not just sports, but definitely sports. And 5 years from now, even more so. So, you can debate the trajectory, or how fast it'll continue to happen, but the trend is clear. And so when you see a macro trend like that in business, you can invest a lot in that. And I think you've seen that, like, what we've put against Thursday night football is a large investment, everything from the trucks to the quality of our talent, to all the tech and thousands of engineers behind it. And I feel great about that investment because this is a decade-long investment. And so we'll continue to do that. And the most important thing is to get the experience right for fans. That's the input. And then the output is the numbers that, people obsess over, but getting the inputs right is what we focus on.
And now Black Friday, you have the Jets and the Dolphins, pretty good matchup. Is the goal to get people to shop while they watch, or how do you look at it Black Friday? I've heard Al Michaels say that. And he might just be kind of just saying it, but like, is that the goal to have people do it at the same time, or how does that work in terms of how you look at Black Friday from your perspective?
Yeah, well, first of all, super excited to have the opportunity to create with the NFL a brand new NFL holiday. And Black Friday is perfect for Amazon for many reasons. It's a big day for us, huge shopping day, obviously. So my number one goal, though, is to deliver a great entertaining experience all the way from our pregame, which will start at 1:30 through the game starting at 3. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. You're going to see us introduce various things, including dropping exclusive deals for our viewers throughout the game that you're only going to get if you're watching. And so, and we'll celebrate the day, I guess. Having said that, we're not going to get in the way of football. Like, you're there to watch the Dolphins and the Jets, and we're going to put on a great broadcast, and we would never compromise any of that. But we're going to have fun with the rest of it and basically try to give back to our viewers in terms of deals. We also have a Garth Brooks concert that's going to happen right after the show that we've invested in. And so we're really going to make it an event is the goal. And my number one goal is that people that watch say, wow, that was awesome. I can't wait for them to do this every year. Like, if that happens, regardless of how much they buy or don't buy, like on Black Friday, to me, that's a success.
John's going to send you his Santa list for things he'd like discounts on, so you could put those through the...
Yeah, just let us know now, Jay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure that email might bounce back, but give it a try.
It has even naughty or nice is the question for John.
A couple of Terp sweatshirts, maybe. Freshman jersey. So Jay, for the Black Friday games,
yeah.
I'm a viewer at home watching on my smart TV.
Yeah.
Tell me what the experience is going to be like.
Yeah, well, first of all, it needs to be easy. So you find the Prime Video app on your smart TV, you open it up, and it will be impossible to miss the Black Friday game. On most TVs, it'll autoplay in Prime Video in the top spot, and you'll click to enlarge it, and you're off and going, and that's really it. I think when we're now, what we're going to do is introduce things like, you've seen us do alternative broadcasts, so we have Dude Perfect returning for this game. And so families with kids definitely should check that out. It's so much fun. We've gotten just unbelievably positive feedback on that. And those guys are incredibly talented in what they've created. And that's another way where our job is to continue to innovate. And because we're not, we don't have a linear schedule, we can create alternative broadcasts that to serve multiple fan bases. I encourage people to check out Prime Vision. If you have not, Prime Vision is our alternative all 22 camera, where we've really introduced a number of innovations this year, including AI, where we're doing alerts, defensive alerts to highlight blitzers in real time. That's an incredible achievement by the team and super cool. So you'll see us, but that's not a Black Friday thing, but that's always there. What I think you'll see is really a broadcast that's entertaining, John. That's not just, if you're hardcore football, you're going to love it. But if you're like, oh, I don't have to work today, let me just check out this Black Friday game. I think you're going to love it. And by the way, you don't even have to have Prime for this game. As a gift in this first year, we've decided to make that available to anyone with an Amazon account. So that'll be easy enough for everyone to tune in.
Are the QR codes, are they going to pop up during the game, or is that just in the pregame?
They will be slightly as we return from broadcast. You'll see certain deals at times during the game, but they won't be over gameplay. They won't be interrupting anything, but you'll see at times during different quarters, offers come in that are really killer offers, unique to the broadcast, that people will be able to snap a QR code and take advantage of that.
I have one more Black Friday question, and one of my favorite sports media deals of all time. I think it's one that you did, which is the Boxing Day games over in England, which is the day after Christmas. All of the Premier League teams play, and that's what you got. What did you learn from that makes you so certain that Black Friday is going to be successful?
Well, I think that's a great tradition over there. I think the reality is, what's similar about it is you have a lot of people who are home and not having to work that day. And you have a sport that is the most popular sport that people care about, and they can sit around with their families and enjoy together. And that's sort of the similarity. I think probably other differences, but to me, when you can bring people together, everyone is so busy now, and there's so much entertainment on, that when we all get these periods of time that, like, the whole family, kids aren't at school and people aren't, it's a unique time when everyone's together. And sports, specifically big sports like the NFL or Premier League, becomes part of the ritual of spending time. And you've seen that forever here in Thanksgiving, right? And so Black Friday, this will be a new window for people to learn about, but they're similar in that way.
Now let's move to the future and tier one sports. We know that you have interest in the NBA, when they're able to talk with everybody freely, if that does come to market, which it is expected to. Why, when you look at the NBA, why would that work in terms of what you're trying to do?
Well, I think, listen, first of all, the NBA is an incredible property. They built a fan base that is worldwide, right? It's a very global game, and a very young fan base. And I think Adam and team have done a great job over there at really leaning forward and into the future, and they're very forward thinking. And so any broadcaster would be excited to be a part of the NBA. And I think you're seeing, I'm sure many are looking at it. For Amazon specifically, what fits is that it is one of the biggest leagues in the world, and people care about it. At the end of the day, do Prime members care about it? Is it important to their life? And as a result, can it be meaningful in terms of the value it adds to Prime members and the Prime program? And I think NBA is true on all of those fronts.
Now, it is different, though, than the NFL, right? It does seem to me like if you had an extension, I've written this and said this, of Thursday night, and, your idea of owning Thursday night with football, you could do that with the NBA, but regular season NBA is different than regular season football. The games aren't as important. So when you look at a deal, are playoffs and, premier events very important? These are must-haves in these deals. Is global a must-have? What is it when you look at the NBA? Because it is a tier one, obviously. It's one of the top sports, of course, but it is different than the NFL and what you're doing with Thursday night football. So how do you look at those things?
Yeah, those are good questions. We're thinking about all those things. I think you're right. It is different, right? Because of the game volume, it's different for sure. Yes, for us, would playoffs, something like playoffs, be an important part of that? Yes, I think that's fair to say.
I want to move on to a couple of different sports, but we write about sports rights deals all the time, and everybody mentions we do. Everybody mentions Amazon, oh well, Amazon's out there as well. In some cases, I know you're not out there. You feel like a stalking horse a bit on a couple of these. Do you ever want to come out and just say, like, we are not interested in export? Do you, or is that beneath you?
Not really, not really. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I think what I will tell you though is on the response we're getting from leagues, I think things have been shifting. Meaning now that all the leagues have seen what we can do with Thursday Night Football, not only from a production quality, but from the actual audience delivery, all the way to can you execute on the streaming quality and deliver at that scale. So, when you can deliver the NFL, I think it gives a lot of comfort to all the other leagues. And so I think the perception has changed a lot over time, or the comfort level, which makes sense. So I think, more than ever, leagues are excited to work with us. The other big component is all leagues and companies, I say companies because it's not just leagues, have to get younger. And so when they see us delivering an audience that's 7 years younger for NFL, that's exciting to them. And they all know they have to be, in this future world to be successful. It'll be some hybrid, of course. I'm not saying cable's going to go away. And so what we found is more and more leagues are excited and realize the value we can bring. And then, in terms of rights, it's competitive out there, right? So, you can't sort of say we're going to have X, Y, and Z, if you're going to be rational, because sometimes the market may just decide the price is different than what we value it at. And by the way, that doesn't mean someone else overpaid. Everyone has different models. Everyone has different business models, which probably makes it hard for you guys to speculate, but doesn't stop you. So that's good. But I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh, you did. Let me just go through a couple of quick ones. I know that we're running out of time on this a little bit, but you've been associated with NASCAR. You've been associated with the CFP. How would you describe your interest in both those properties?
Oh, I think they're both valuable properties that they fit the type of properties we would be interested in. For all the reasons I already stated. So I think, I'm very, very bullish on whether it's us or someone else. But I
think I was looking for you to announce something on our pod, actually, if you don't.
Oh,
mind.
really? Was that okay? Just a minute. Let me think. I think they're both great properties, and they would fit the type of properties we would be interested in and take a look at seriously.
You've already gotten into the local rights game with the Yankees, where, for people nationally in New York, and the demographic where Yes is, which is the tri-state area, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, predominantly a little Pennsylvania, I think too. You do 21 games of the Yankees. They were Friday nights and Wednesday night. When you talk about the regional sports and what's going on with all these markets, do you want to replicate that? Is that, what do you think about the idea of doing more games in more markets locally in baseball, basketball, or hockey, or all three?
Well, I know both of you know this market well. The local market is in the middle of transition right now, transition because of what's happened with the RSNs and not sure how that's exactly going to play out. What I would say is I think everyone has to, if you're a league, you really want to make those games more accessible, more available. Again, I think there's more entertainment options than ever before, especially for anyone under 30, that if you don't make your product accessible enough, you risk people just not going through the hoops, right? And so I think, and the leagues know that, and that's going to be a big focus, and they have to figure out how they're going to make this transition. But the reality is OTT delivery has to be part of that to make it available for everyone. I think that's the direction it's going. And I think we can be a valuable part of that in terms of, because of our large customer reach, in terms of Prime in the US, as well as our technical capabilities we built. And we already, we do NBA League Pass today as a channel and MLB TV. So I would expect, I would love to be involved to try to help solve that local transition in some way. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out. As you guys know better than anyone, it's a complicated situation right now. And I wouldn't guess exactly how it's going to pan out, but I do think we could be a valuable partner, and we'd love to be part of that solution for fans in the future. And just have to keep watching and see how that plays out.
One more complicated one is ESPN and its future. And it's talked about, you talked about partners. It's talked about adding partners. I've reported that, they're looking for 2 partners if they could, maybe in an ideal world. They've also talked to sports leagues. You fall into that category of a place where potentially they could, there could be some kind of match. How do you look at ESPN in terms of, partnering with them in some sort of agreement?
Yeah, I wouldn't be appropriate to speculate on that. What I would say is I have huge respect for everyone at ESPN and what they do, as well as their business. But I've watched ESPN since I was like this high, and I'm not much taller now. You guys have met me, but so a big fan of Jimmy and what they do and what they put on air. I think they do a great job. They obviously have a transition they're trying to navigate, and so but I wouldn't want to speculate on us or anything in that.
I mean,
regard.
we wouldn't be, and you said inappropriate. We would not be offended if you speculate on the podcast.
Inappropriate to who? I know exactly.
I mean, you said it's inappropriate to us. We would not be offended. I'm just saying. So speculate if you want. Be free.
Thanks for clarifying that. I'll still stick to my original answer.
Fair enough.
Well, I have one final question before we let you go, and you should see, Jay, the list. We have probably like 30 questions on the list that we wanted to talk to you about, because it so many. But the only one that sticks in my mind: what was Weber's stat line in the playoff game?
Oh, I wish I knew, but I can tell you a funny story about that. Is it was the regional finals, and right before we played them, apparently someone in the school, a girl in the school, wrote a whole article, and I think in their newspaper, how they weren't taking it seriously enough, and they weren't like really blowing people away, and like they were just like going through the or something that was not appreciated by me right before we're about to play him. And so I think our game plan going in was to let him shoot threes. We were hoping he would just shoot threes instead of dunking. And I think he hit his first 3 threes in the first 3 minutes of the game. And I was like, well, this strategy is not working out. So I don't remember the exact stat line, but it was pretty good.
The journalist ruins everything again, Jay. I can't believe it.
Exactly.
That was inappropriate.
That was inappropriate. Exactly.
Well, Jay Marine, head of global sports for Amazon. Really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with Black Friday. And we know we're going to be hearing a lot more from Amazon and what you guys are doing now with all the entities you're already involved with and in the future. And we appreciate your time.
Thanks
a lot.
I enjoyed it. Take care, guys.
Andrew, I enjoyed that interview. My biggest takeaway is that not only is Jay Marine a sports fan, but he is interested in sports rights. So everything that we brought up, he showed an interest in. The NBA, he showed an interest in. NASCAR, the CFP, everything that we've already reported. Like, Amazon is a big player, and they want to use sports in order to grow Prime subscribers and to keep Prime subscribers. And he made that abundantly clear. And so if I'm a league or a conference and I was listening to that interview, I'm feeling very heartened right now.
Dude, throughout this pod, since we started, I've been telling you Amazon Prime Video is a big player, and you've told me no. And I actually noticed, I just realized this. You always say Thursday Night Football is like
the smallest package that there is. Yes.
Jay Marine's on. And it's like, hey, let's talk about Michigan. He didn't bring that up. But hey, look, my biggest takeaway, NBA playoffs. I mean, these are things we've talked about, but he said them. NBA playoffs is important to them for an NBA deal. My read on the NBA thing is they're very, very interested, which we both reported. And I think the regional sports aspect of things, they could easily be a solution, with these teams. And I think the interesting thing with that, this is not with really what Jay had to say, but, do the NBA, the NHL, and baseball, do they, end up in the same entity? Because if they do, that's probably good for the consumer and maybe good for the leagues, possibly, and good for whomever they go with. But if it's split up, I'm not sure if that's so great for the consumer if everything's sliced up. I mean, that's the problem right now for the consumer as things move to streaming and stay on cable, and it's just like costs like $1 trillion.
Yeah, and the leagues know that, and so they're trying to create a system to where if you want everything, you'll be able to go to an ESPN Plus or an Amazon to subscribe to a NBA League Pass and have access to every game that's out there. That's sort of
that's why I think it's ESPN, Amazon, and Apple. And I do think he didn't answer the question about if they have interest in teaming up with ESPN. But if you put ESPN along with an Apple or along with an Amazon, that could be pretty powerful in terms of distribution, the content that ESPN already is leasing, and the content that those two have, and then the deep pockets that you'd have that become even deeper. And if you're going to win long term in a streaming world, it makes sense. I mean, obviously those are big companies and there's a lot to go on and they're complicated deals, but it seems to me those type of that, if there's a partnership with one of those, could be very good strategically and long term.
Yeah, my prediction has always been that anybody that does a deal with the NBA is going to have access to the NBA League Pass or access to those rights.
All of them would. So like Amazon and ESPN both have deals, and Max. Let's say those are the three.
Yeah, get rid of exclusivity. You're not having exclusivity on that. It's sort of a price of doing business. So if Turner does a deal, I would expect Max would have access to that lineup of games.
I see. So all of them would be able to sell the local games.
That's my prediction. And it's based on, I don't think that they value exclusivity or that the league values exclusivity as much as just trying to address what you were just talking
that's
about.
good, because that kind of recreates sort of the cable model, because you're saying like you'd have to have a subscription to Mac, you'd have to have a subscription to ESPN, you'd have to have a subscription to Amazon Prime to be able to access your games.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. All right. Yeah, I like that.
That brings us to the end, Andrew, of another podcast. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, you yourself included. AC Wyatt, the producer, Chris Mason, the master of the board. We've been doing this for a little bit more than 2 years. It's still a ball, man. I'm still having a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, thanks to you. Enjoyed that. And Jay Marine for coming on. We really appreciate that. Black Friday. John's going to be there with his phone anytime there's a deal. Or especially ACY, you can chime in on this, especially people probably hear this in the bloopers in a minute. If there's a deal for any type of measurements that you can put on your wall so he can see how tall he is.
If I can get a retro Maryland basketball jersey, totally. Yeah, I'm in.
Oh, that too, but you're gonna have to wait till the bloopers to understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely stick in for those.
Thank you. I think we have the next iteration. We need to put a couple pictures up there.
What, in the back? I know.
In the back.
I like the globe.
The globe's not bad, but sport it up. Maybe a Adley Rushman poster. I might get you that for Christmas. An Adley Rushman fat face.
I should get my.
Would your wife be okay? What room is that?
I should get my circa 1986 Len Bias growth chart.
Whatever. Just I think some Maryland apparel, some sporty stuff.
Yeah, I do need to take some time and figure this out.
And you have a great wall there to put a couple of things.
Wait, can you explain this Len Bias thing?
Hey, what is this exactly?
They gave his senior year at Maryland, they gave away like, do you remember we used to have growth charts?
Mm-hmm.
And they just gave away like a 6'8" poster of Len Bias just sitting in there in his gold uniform. I'll send you a picture. It's still up in my childhood bedroom, by the way.
All right. So did you make a mark
Yeah, they're markings.
relative to your group?
No markings, but it was in my dorm room. I'm going to give too much information here. It was in my dorm room, and it was right next to my Minute Bowl growth chart poster.
Oh,
That was so
growth
big
charts
that
did
it
you
had to
have?
go over the ceiling, and I believe there are markings there where I like come up to his waist.
Nice.
how many growth charts did you have? Did you have a Muggsy Bogues one?
Scott Stevens of the Caps. That was just three. My
Have
freshman
you ever
year
heard of such a
roommate did
thing?
not like me a lot. Scott.
Are we taping this? Because this is definitely bloopers.
Oh, we definitely are.
Okay. I mean, if anybody out there wants to get John Ourand anything, he loves growth charts. That's what he collects. All right. And the shirt, by the way. I noticed the shirt.
It's my Thanksgiving flannel.
Oh, it's the same from yesterday, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm impressed that you knew to wear the same shirt.
I really feel like John's closet is just like Homer Simpson's and Peter Griffin's.
Or is it the same shirt? Because no, I put the same shirt on, but I didn't tell you. I told you in the past that we should keep the same
You've
shirt
told
on.
me in the past, and I don't want you to like. Yeah, I didn't want to have to get up in the middle and like.
Yeah, well, I
change
didn't want to say.
characters.
I didn't say anything. I said, let's see if he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. All right.
Jay, Andrew and I are on-air talent now, so did you have to deal with that? Sorry.
Right.